Welcome to the mid-March through mid-April soul forecast. This is not an astrology forecast, and there's so many wonderful astrologers on YouTube. But what I'm sharing is from a soul perspective. And this is both individual and a collective reading. I also tend to look at energy a little differently. I found that I was reading it from mid-month to mid-month because energy rarely resets cleanly at the start of a calendar month, especially when you're dealing with the soul. So during this particular period, before I recorded this video, I received 2 words for the soul to work on. And the words are bittersweet and betrayal. Now, these certainly are not the most comfortable words. I was not happy to get those words, to tell you the truth. But they are honest ones. And sometimes, and unfortunately oftentimes, the soul does not grow through comfort. It grows through awareness. And as we must remember that this is Earth School, and we have curriculums. And we're having some themes coming through. And the first one was bittersweet. I found bittersweet is landing in the middle of life. That's what it felt to me. So you can see a smiling child, and that momentarily brings a smile to your face, and yet at the same time, your heart can be breaking in two. This is the way the soul wants to learn. The dichotomy of living on the earth plane. To understand that you can hold 2 feelings at the same time, and both can be correct. I find that it is living in the gray and not in the black and white. My home state is gray many months of the year, especially in winter. So I have a visual reminder about living in the gray. It is watching the world fall apart. And yet, your life remains relatively untouched, at least for the moment. Life often unfolds like this. When part of the world is collapsing, and yet another part continues quietly. And the soul is asking to hold both truths at once. It's not to deny one and not to exaggerate the other. But we must learn as earthlings in school to sit in the tension between them. From my own story, I remember living through a very destructive hurricane in Florida when I lived in that state. And so many lives and properties were permanently affected. Yet, I was returning back to my home in the early evening, and I was driving kind of along the Gulf, and the sunset was happening over the water. And it was a vibrant pink and orange. It had a otherworldly feeling to it. It was like I picked my favorite crayons and painted them across the sky. Beauty and devastations were existing at that same time. It reached deep into me, and upon reflection, that was the bittersweetness of life. Now, the other word I received was betrayal for this particular time period. Again, both individual and collective. On the larger scale, we may ask, how am I being betrayed? Did I believe in a promise and then the action was different? Did someone say one thing and do another? Collectively, many people are beginning to ask these questions. But betrayal is not only something that happens to us. From the soul perspective, another question appears. And probably the most difficult one. Where have I betrayed myself? It is easier to point the finger at someone who betrayed you, but I have found it much harder to ask. Where did I ignore my own knowing? Where did I silence my own intuition? Where did I stay when I already knew I should leave? Where did I agree to something my soul already knew was not right? And this type of betrayal also links into the points in our lives where we self-sabotage. Now, the soul does not ask this question to create guilt. It asks to create awareness. And in that awareness, it restores us to back into our inner power. Now, unfortunately, bitterness and betrayal often arrive together. You recognize something painful. And then you recognize the wisdom it brought you. And I want you also to realize the link between the bitterness and being bittersweet. Because they're different sides of the same coin. As you grow in wisdom, you see clearly what happened. You also see the growth that came from it. And you begin to turn away from any bitterness into the bittersweetness of awakening. And sometimes the deepest betrayal we discover is the moment we stop listening to ourselves. There's no doubt that these ever-changing times call for a soul that is strong in its center and aware of the moment it is living in. And I'd like to repeat that. This is the time for the soul that is strong in its center and aware of the moment it is living in. So this period between mid-March and mid-April may ask you to sit with these two ideas, bittersweet and betrayal. One is teaching you to hold multiple truths. The other asks you to reclaim your own truth. Neither lesson is easy, but both are deeply human. If you feel comfortable, you might share in the comments which word speaks to you more during this time. If this reflection supported you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. It's free, and it really does help the channel grow. We're not trying to be perfect here. So not perfect. But what I'd like to do is say that we are wising up together.